Monday Madness is back for season 2. We are absolutely delighted. We've switched around some things, we've messed around with the format a little bit, but it is fundamentally still the same craziness we had for those original 50 episodes. I
Yes.
can't wait, Jeannine. We're starting season 2 with what promises to be a really interesting discussion today. I think we just get straight on into it. Welcome back to the madness. Hello, everyone. Welcome back to Monday Madness with Morgan and the Machine. Oh, it's been so long since we've said it, Jeannine. I don't know what to do anymore. I'm a bit
I
confused and
know.
thrown off, and we have to get back into the Monday Madness mindset, I think.
Yes, we have to find our groove again. It's been a little bit. The show took a little break, writers actor strike. So talking about topical movie world things
Yeah.
were not was not going to work. So yeah, we took a little
Nothing was
break.
happening anymore.
Yes, we took a little break, talked about reformulating the show, but I'm glad we're back to, have some great discussion about different topics that interest us, share kind of what we've been watching, and still have a little, fun and games. So I'm excited to
Oh,
be
yeah.
back and just have some fun conversation.
Yes, definitely. And we're going to have to remind ourselves that we told ourselves going forward, Monday Madness will be a streamlined show and a far
Yes.
shorter show than it used to be. And we're doing that for a reason. We're doing that for format reasons, like we say, switching things up and all that good stuff. We're going. We're excited. We're always
Yeah.
excited, but we're definitely excited. That nice original 50 episodes just ended nicely on number 50, I think. So it feels
Yes.
okay for us to say this is season 2, and it's
Yes.
just, it doesn't feel arbitrary. It feels actually like we meant it, even though we
Yeah, it
didn't.
was
I've
totally
always liked
planned.
that. It really was. Anyway, let's get straight on into it. Jeannine, we're back. What's up?
Well, I actually have had some really good movie experiences. Um, theaters are doing this thing called Spider-Man Mondays, so they are re-releasing all of the live action Spider-Man movies into theaters every Monday. So I recently watched Spider-Man 2 on the big screen. So it was a really
Lovely.
these screenings have been really packed. Spider-Man 1 was pretty full. So after I got my ticket and saw Spider-Man, the first Tobey Maguire movie, I went to Regal to I'm like, "Okay, this was pretty packed. I'm gonna book my ticket for all the rest of these." And every screening was full. So, I think the first Amazing Spider-Man movie I'm gonna have to watch in, like, the front section, like, which I
Oh,
hate, but and I don't think I've ever sat in that section before. So, one movie I did not get a great seat, but yeah, like, people are coming out to rewatch these movies in theaters, which I think is really fun. But it was
I
really
mean,
nice
good.
seeing. Yeah, yeah.
For the most part, all the Spider-Man movies are really good for the most part. You
Yes, I
know,
mean,
the
even if
majority.
they're not seen as great, I think people still find things in them to enjoy. And generally, this is kind of Spider-Man 2 is not just seen as probably one of the best Spider-Man movies, but one of the best comic book movies, especially coming from
Yeah.
this early kind of experimental era of kind of finding their groove with superhero comic book movies. And I have to say, like, it was great seeing it on the big screen, and also I was able to find some, kind of themes that I maybe really didn't think about before, that they're really driving the point home that anyone can be a hero in their day-to-day lives, like,
Okay.
um and I think that really speaks to what Stanley always said about why Spider-Man's costume is the way it is, like, he loved the fact that Spider-Man was covered from head to toe so that anybody could picture themselves under the mask. Anyone could
Yeah.
say, "Spider-Man's my hero, I could be Spider-Man," because he's completely covered, so it's easy to picture yourself as that. And then you see it with characters stepping up, by the end of the film, Doc Ock is making this big heroic sacrifice. Even Mary Jane, like in that final act, she's picking up a 2x4 and kind of trying to sneak up behind Doc Ock to help Peter. Aunt May hitting Doc Ock with the umbrella, doing her own
Yeah.
little heroic act. Everyone on the subway standing in front of Spider-Man to protect him. So we see all of these moments of even just everyday characters stepping up and doing heroic things. Peter, when he's lost his powers, running into that burning building to save that child. So, yeah, it's such a prevalent theme for that film that they kind of really stick to and devote the story to through the whole film. Because you see movies kind of have this theme, but then they kind of give it up halfway through or it doesn't go anywhere. But I loved kind of noticing for the first time that this film actually had this really beautiful through line message that they kind of devote the whole film to. So it was a great on-screen watch, and so I'm excited to watch these films every week. And then on the kill count, the Dead Meat show, he was doing kill counts on all the Exorcist films. So I actually watched Exorcist 3 for the first time, and it was
Okay.
actually really good. It's like they found a really interesting way to connect it to the first film. It's written and directed and based off of the book by the writer of the original Exorcist. And it's this slow burn, like police procedural. We have George C. Scott replacing the Lee J. Cobb role, which is just funny to me because I always got the two of those actors mixed up anyway. So
They
the
are very
fact,
similar, yes, very
yes,
shouty.
yes, and, like, the 3 named thing, like, I don't know, I always mixed them up. So, just funny that he's taking over that role, and so he's trying to investigate these murders that are happening supposedly with the same kind of style of a killer that's supposedly dead. Um
Yeah, I know The Exorcist 3's has that one really good jump scare, which
Yes!
is basically everybody knows from The Exorcist 3 before even having watched it.
Yeah, so, I
Is
mean,
it just
I didn't know about that, I
like
knew nothing about this film, so the fact
oh,
that
okay.
it's this, like, slow burn police procedural, um there's even like a conscious effort to not really show a whole lot of gore. It's just kind of like this build up and you see things kind of, covered up and you get the essence of what has happened, but you don't see it. Also just random cameo from Samuel L. Jackson and Fabio just popping up in one scene of this movie. Very strange. But a really good story, a nice slow burn, and Brad Dourif is giving
Yeah.
an incredible performance in this movie. Oh my gosh, I was so impressed by him. So, yeah,
I like that.
it was a nice horror surprise. Like, I never
I
would have
like
watched
that.
this movie. So, thank you, James A. Janisse, for covering those first 3 films on the kill count.
Yeah.
I heard the
I
second one
mean,
is not great, so I did not watch it. I just watched the kill count on it. And then, yeah,
yeah, I
this was
don't
just a nice slow burn surprise. I really enjoyed The Exorcist 3.
I don't think we want to be going near Exorcist 2 verity
Yes,
time.
no, definitely not.
Um, but yeah, you've reminded me there that it's always nice to go and revisit the Spider-Man
Mhm.
movies, the
Yes.
Tobey Maguire Spider-Man movies, because Spider-Man 1, I used to watch endlessly.
Oh,
I've definitely seen it. It's possibly the superhero movie I've watched the most out of any superhero movie is
yeah,
Spider-Man 1. Spider-Man 2, I've watched way less. So I don't have that same amount of reverence for it that I do
okay.
for the first one. Even though, yes, okay, it's very much on the same level of quality and
Yeah.
enjoyability that it is, but it would be nice to go back and revisit
Yes, you should.
them, definitely.
Definitely.
I mean, the only thing I watched this week that wasn't something for the shows that we do here
Yeah.
on various It's a Wonderful Podcast things, whether it's main show, Morgan hasn't seen our our Morgan hasn't seen TV
Yeah,
stuff
we're
on the
watching a lot
YouTube
right now.
channel. Subscribe, ding the notification bell on the It's a Wonderful Podcast YouTube channel, of course, and subscribe wherever you are getting your podcasts on all major podcast platforms. But the only other thing I'd watched this week was a pre-code movie called Honor Among Lovers from 1931.
Oh,
Claudette
okay.
Colbert and Friedrich March.
Oh,
And
nice. Okay.
it was fine. It was good. It was enjoyable. It's not like the absolute top tier rom-com or romantic drama of pre-code you've ever seen. But it reminded me, and this is maybe just because I've watched a couple of Friedrich March movies somewhat recently, just how great he is as a charming romantic lead, as
Okay.
well as maybe what we can more easily put him as, which I don't know sometimes is whether he does so much range. Obviously, he's got so
Well,
much range.
yes, yes, but I mean, the 2 films I've seen him in were definitely not romantic leads, so I think I might need to just see that film for the variety because my knowledge of Friedrich March is Dr. Jekyll, which the movie calls him
Yeah,
Dr. Jekyll, and Mr. Hyde, and Inherit the Wind. So, like,
very different movies.
very different and definitely not romantic, charming kind of person in those films, so
Yeah,
I
but
need that in between.
he was in this. It's kind of he is somebody that essentially falls in love with his secretary, a married man who falls in love with his secretary, who is played by Claudette Colbert. He doesn't
Okay.
quite have the I suppose, directness and kind of risqueness that you might expect in a pre-code movie.
Yeah.
And also, I found that interesting because this was a Dorothy Arzner directed movie. You know, the one mainstream female director in
Oh,
Hollywood, in the
yes.
actual Hollywood studios in the 30s.
Yeah.
Um, that I felt maybe a bit strange that it didn't quite have that push that I felt
Yeah.
with when I watched her, when I watched Marry, what's it called? Marily We Go to Hell from 1932, which also
Oh,
has
okay.
Friedrich March in. That one's definitely a bit more what you would consider pre-code. You know,
Yeah.
it feels more pre-code. But this was a good movie. This was a
Okay.
perfectly good movie, perfectly enjoyable movie. Claudette Colbert is always great. She's
Oh,
just such
yeah.
a
Oh,
charming
yeah.
presence in anything. She's plucky and kind of tiny, and just fights her way through whatever
Yes, as
situation she's at.
usual. Yes.
But no, it was great.
Oh,
But
great, great.
that's all I did that
Okay.
wasn't for the show this week.
Yes. Well, now that I think of it, isn't he the lead as well in, I Married a Witch? Friedrich March?
Friedrich March and I Married a Witch.
Is it him?
Oh God, I should know that right
I
off the
know.
top of my head, and I don't know that right.
Yes, you got me the criterion, but I haven't
Why?
watched it yet.
Why don't I know that right? I'm going to have to find it out because the only
It's gonna
thing I
drive you nuts,
remember
yeah.
from I Married a Witch is Veronica Lake. It really is gonna drive me nuts. But we do have to get into our main discussion, I suppose, today, don't we, at
Yes,
some
yes.
point? We can't leave it for too long. We have to be snappy. Remind ourselves, Jeannine, that
Yes.
we must be snappy on this. Friedrich March, of course, is the lead in I
Yes.
Married a Witch. Thank you.
But yes, we do have a very interesting discussion today. So, Morgan, let's talk.
Yes, it is very interesting. It's an idea you threw out at me that you might want. Well, you didn't throw it out at me, actually. You threw it towards me like a
And you
like a
caught it.
nice, shiny, exciting baseball, not like a
Yes.
dart that would injure me. Not one of those, or a
No,
javelin,
never,
or
never.
any sort of sharp,
Weaponry,
pointy weapon.
throwable weaponry. Um, yes, there has been this fan casting going around for a unannounced, unplanned, potentially, live action Tangled film. So people were suggesting 2 actresses of Indian descent to play Rapunzel, and of course, the certain type of commentary came with that. So I thought it
Yes.
would be a very interesting conversation to discuss why people get so upset with race swapped casting.
Yes, as we are phrasing it, and as the title, if you are watching this on YouTube, of course, will now show, why are people bothered by race swap casting? It's an
Yes.
interesting discussion. It really, really is. I
Mhm. Yeah.
realized as well that before, when right at the beginning of this show, and this is something I'll have to get used to back used to doing as well, is that I used to ask you what's up in a very specific way, and I didn't do that this show because I forgot that that's what I used to do,
I
and
mean, you
that must
asked
have
me
thrown
what's up.
people off. I did, but I used to say, "Sup, Janine," and
Yes,
I
yes.
totally forgot to do that.
No,
I'm
that's
sorry
okay, you know,
about
and
that.
we're getting back and in the groove, as we said, you know, we're getting our
Yeah,
groove back like
yeah.
Stella. So
Like Stella.
yes.
I'm Angela Bassett. Why are people I'm not Angela Bassett because that would be somebody being bothered about race swapped casting. You can't cast me as
As
Angela
as
Bassett, or
Stella,
can you?
yeah,
Does it matter? Who
yes.
knows?
Or I mean,
This
or
is
the Jamaican, Taye Diggs character.
exactly. You can't cast me as the Jamaican Tay Diggs character. It doesn't
It
work.
just doesn't work,
Um,
but
but it's an
yes.
interesting it
Yeah,
is an interesting topic. I think I like that it stems from this unplanned, tangled live action movie because you would imagine at some point Disney are going to make a
a
live action
Tangled live
Tangled,
action. Yes.
therefore it being a live action Rapunzel. And I mean, really, if you're asking me what my fundamental stance is on this kind of issue, it is as follows.
Yes.
If a character's race is absolutely inherent to their story, the themes of that movie or show or whatever, and it is fully a part of them, and they cannot be who they are without their race, then it must be played by somebody of that race. But when the
100%.
fundamental story or the fundamental themes have nothing to do with race whatsoever, that is when you can cast it as anybody at all. So, in my eyes, in this Rapunzel case, does the story of Rapunzel have anything to do with somebody's race whatsoever? No, it doesn't. So cast whoever. And
Yes.
who are these? Who are these two people that are supposedly being fan cast as Rapunzel?
So I hope I don't butcher these names, but one of them was Maitre Ramakrishnan from
Very
Never
happy
Have
to
I
say.
Ever, and the other one was Avantika Vandanapu, who played Karen in the new musical Mean Girls film. So
Okay.
people seeing her being able to sing, also playing a character that we know as a white blonde woman, uh,
Yeah.
in
I
that
mean, were
film.
people bothered were people bothered by that? The
No.
famous white character of Karen from Mean Girls, were people bothered that she wasn't white
Uh,
in this
not
Mean Girls musical? No?
not that I heard. So, those 2 have been swirling around as names for a live action Rapunzel. And I have had my own discourse on TikTok about this situation, this conversation, hence why I wanted to discuss that. Because I think the outcries for things like this not to happen come from both sides, come from people of color, come from white people. And I do try to understand both of those perspectives. But when you get to a certain line in your criticism, I can immediately kind of call bullshit on that and know that it's not coming from a place of really wanting to think critically about this. It's just coming from a place of wanting to be exclusionary and wanting things to be as they always were for very
Yeah.
specific
Which
reasons.
yes,
The pushback
which is
I was getting Oh, go ahead.
no, I'm just saying that is the issue because really, if you're looking at it from a very, very open mind, you can
Yeah.
have the argument of actors should be allowed to do whatever they want, which can come about from people. I'm
Yes.
not sure I've seen something with Billy D. Williams recently at the TCM festival. And there was an article about him where he was giving some sort of Q&A. And Billy D. Williams, obviously a ridiculously well respected, revered, trailblazing black
Yeah.
actor that he is, um, saying, something along the lines of, I think in a conversation that had something to do with blackface, to be honest with you, that actors should be allowed to do whatever they want, providing it's in a respectful way. And that last bit is so important in this
Yeah.
phrase
For the context,
because
yeah.
how many times throughout movie history have we seen people play actors that weren't exactly their race or exactly their personality?
Yeah.
That's what a lot of being an actor actually is
Yeah.
playing someone who's not yourself. But when it's when it's a race swapping situation, you have seen respected performances in the past that have been race swapped. Now, sometimes their race doesn't matter at all, obviously,
Yeah.
which is why when we're in this mindset of just cast whoever if it doesn't matter, sometimes they really do matter. Like
Yeah.
in the case of something like Othello or something like that, which has
Yes.
seen many people play Othello in blackface that has many different people giving many different opinions of. I mean, I'm not a fan of blackface, how obviously. However,
Yeah.
it has been done satirically very, very well a number of times
Yeah.
because it's got that extra layer of being aware of itself almost. And in that
Yeah.
situation, that is kind of clever. I like that.
Yeah, and then you can also take this creative spin with a race swap of that kind of situation in terms of what they've been doing with it now. Like I've seen, Sir Patrick Stewart play Othello, but they changed him being a white man and the rest of the world that he exists in being a
Yeah.
black world. So
That's a
you
very
do
clever
have
way of doing it.
the kind of minority aspect, but it's just switched so that he can still stay being a white man.
Yeah. But obviously this isn't just black people, white people. This is anybody of any race
Anything. Yes.
doing anything. But what it comes down to is that if something is inherently, black, or if something is inherently South Asian, or, you know, uh, Native American, or whatever it may
Yeah.
be, you have to cast those groups of people as those groups of people. Otherwise, it's just, well, it's disrespectful for one, but it's also
Yeah.
like, surely it just comes across as silly. Like, why are you even doing that? But in the case of Rapunzel, does it matter? I know you've said to
Yes.
me that you've had or discussions with people whose arguments have been Rapunzel is a German story, therefore it should be played by a German actress.
Actress.
It's like,
Yes.
yeah, okay, but how pigeonholy do you want to be?
Do you
How
wanna get with something
confined
like
do you
that?
want to be? Because that would mean British people can't play American people, and I'm sorry, how many performances are you losing if that doesn't happen in
Yes. Gay
mainstream Hollywood?
gay
You're
people
just
can't
being
play straight
silly
people,
about it.
because people love Jonathan Bailey in Bridgerton as this straight character, but he is a gay man in real life. So you're gonna tell me that,
Oh yeah, you can't do
something like
that.
that can happen? Um, so
We know
yeah,
where it comes from. We know why people are
yes.
bothered about it.
So
It's
it's
because they
not an
can't open
yeah.
their own mind
Exactly,
properly.
and it's not a if that is your stance, that is your stance, but it's never a consistent argument, because if you're saying this is a German story, it has to be played by a German actress, then you need to kind of feel that way generally if that is your ground, that is your stance. Also
Unless you're
just
really into Rapunzel and Germany,
yes, which
which you might be.
okay, sure. The maybe the original origin of the fairy tale is a German fairy tale, but other cultures have told a version of this story. Nothing in the film, while the film and the world of Corona may be based on German things, there's nothing that Disney did to inherently straight up tell you that that place is Germany. So that's not any kind of cultural significant tie to any kind of cultural thing that needs to be upheld. And when I kind of push back on this "she must be German" argument with, "Okay, well, what if they cast an actress who's not German, but she's white and blonde, but she's French, or she's white and blonde,
Yeah.
and she's Italian, or she's white and French and she's Irish, and she looks like the animated version that you know. Are you going to have any kind of pushback for that?" And crickets, crickets. No, no, no,
Obviously.
nothing to say back. Um,
Obviously you don't, because it then becomes clear that let's put the statement back on screen for those watching. Why are people bothered by
yeah,
race swapped casting? People are bothered about it in the wrong contexts, in the context where somebody's race doesn't matter. People are bothered by race swap casting because they don't like seeing change. They don't like seeing different than what they're
yeah,
used to, and you're being a bit close-minded if you like that. And that's
and it's very
it's like
sad.
it's fine to be like that. That's not your fault necessarily that you
Yeah,
might be being closed-minded. It can come from upbringing, it can come from environment, anything like that. But the first step to becoming open-minded is recognizing a certain level of societal close-mindedness, and
yes,
that you can perhaps, in your own mind then go, no, surely it's nicer, it's more fulfilling, it's more
yeah.
loving to be a person who is open-minded. And surely that just makes yourself feel nicer. Maybe that's just me being all nice and idealistic, but
Yes, yeah.
that's where my mind is at. So
Yes,
I come from that point, and when it doesn't matter, be open-minded and embrace the differences, because the original thing that you really are clearly quite protective over isn't
it's
going
still
anywhere
it's
anyway.
still there, it's still there, but they still white people still feel like something is being taken away from them because it's the default, it's what has always been, and like you said, it's this fear of change. So then they're throwing out these made up terms or misuse of terms, white erasure, ginger erasure, misusing the word woke,
Ginger
which
erasure.
yes, because there's this kind of trend of redheaded characters always being recast as black people, like they don't understand
Ah,
that redheaded black people do exist. Um,
rarely, it
but
has
they
to be
do,
said, but
but they
yeah.
do, they do exist. Um, uh, so and even kind of co-opting the term woke, which is an inherently black term to describe anything that is being done to show representation as some sort of agenda, which woke really came out of the idea of just being, breaking out of your ignorance, being aware of the world around you, being aware of kind of social constructs and concepts and things like that. And so
Yeah.
for it to
I
have
do
been
really hate
co-opted
how it's
to
been.
be, yes, to be misinterpreted for situations like this is incredibly frustrating. Um, and kind of just the nostalgia argument that also comes out of this situation when people talk about, I can't see myself in the character anymore. Um, when a race swap happens, it's typically not changing the essence of the character, their personality, their ideals, who they are, what they feel. So, if the only thing you could relate to in a character is them looking like you, it's kinda
That's worrying.
sad. It's really sad because I had to grow up relating to characters that I found interesting without them ever looking like me. I grew up with Belle being my favorite princess. I could relate to her on so many different levels. She loved to read. She was kind of ostracized by her community and seen as different. That was
Yeah.
something I related to. And so
She
I
fell
could
in love with
see
large beastly animals that you, of
oh,
course,
yes,
did.
yes, that's my thing, 100%. Um, uh, but I found ways to relate to her on different levels, and I could see myself in her despite her not looking like me. And so I've had to have that experience with characters that I've loved in media my whole life because there were few and far between characters that looked like me. So
Yeah.
the fact that you can't find anything interesting about this character other than the fact that they look like you, did you really even like that character to begin with?
See, this is the thing. Like I find myself being or almost gravitating towards movies and shows with characters, or gravitating towards characters that are nothing like me, simply because I love finding an identifiable factor in somebody that
And somebody
is
who's
on the
different than you.
surface so unlike me,
Mhm.
because that just seems to me to a human being is a human being. That
Yeah.
can be such a uniting force
Yes, yes.
when you find that sort of stuff. Like, I find myself reading at the minute um, a few kind of Latin American romantic melodramas, which I'm not from Mexico or Colombia
Yeah.
or these parts of the world. I'm also not a woman who's been forced to live with traditional family values and wants to break free from
Yeah,
them. Yet, why can I find a little bit of my own self in those characters that I've been reading
yeah,
in books recently? Because
yeah,
there's similarities in every person, and that is it's the uniting factor of everybody, and to recognize that feels so heartwarming and feels so wonderful when you can find that sort of stuff. I love watching coming of age movies that are about women more than about men, because
yeah,
to find identifiable qualities in those kind of stories means more to me, because it feels obvious to me that, yeah, if I
yeah, it's a
just wanted to
connection
watch my
almost.
own life, like, what's the point in doing that? I
Yes,
know
you're
my
getting
own life. I
yeah,
know my own experience. I want all these other different kind of things. And this
yes.
goes for race as well. Obviously, this goes for race as well.
Yes. No, I like this unifying idea that you can see in seeing yourself in somebody who doesn't look like you. And I don't want to completely dismiss people loving a character because they look like them, because I think when people of color see a character look like them, as well as finding inherent inside traits that they can relate to, it's validating. And I feel like it's a different experience for people of color to connect to a character who looks like them than it is for a white person to do that, because
Yeah,
that's
I
kind of
think
the
it
default.
is.
That's what it always is.
And
Um,
I'm speaking about this as obviously somebody who looks like me.
yes.
Um, the fact that white has been the default
Yeah.
is something that we can never get away from
Yeah,
in history. You're never going to change that, as kind of as privileged and as nasty as some of the aspects of that obviously are.
yeah.
You're never going to get away from that. So it's kind of ingrained in a lot of the world and a lot of media that
Yes.
that is the default. It's
So it's
just you
never gonna
have
be
to
something in the
realize,
minority. It's never gonna be the
no,
minority.
but it's when you have to kind of realize that maybe it should have never been the default anyway, because look how many varied people live on the planet.
Exactly.
Um, it's we still refer to black people, Latin people, Asian people, whoever, as minorities, and I think that's I don't love even doing that, because whether it's what context you're saying it in, I suppose it's what context you're saying
Yes,
it in,
yes.
but it presents that kind of hierarchy as white people on top and everybody else then, and I really don't
Yeah.
like
No,
thinking
I get
like
that.
that. That should all be the same level of, let's, you know, these people have this junk, these people have this junk, and it's all the same
Yeah,
size
but
chunk.
again, it's the default structural system that has been set up for us since,
Yeah.
the idea of race was kind of formulated.
Yeah. So
Um,
that's why it makes sense with what you're saying, that
yes,
it can
because
obviously feel more meaningful
It
for
feels
black people, for
for
Latino
any
people, for
POC
Asian
person to
people, for
see
whoever.
them, yeah, for them to see themselves in a character visually, because people who look like us have been dismissed or not seen as desirable or beautiful or special or important enough to be seen, featured and highlighted. So when we are, it is this very special validating feeling. Whereas, if a white person says, I'm mad they changed the race of Ariel. I can't see myself in her anymore, which is what I got a lot of discourse about when I talked about this on other social media centers. Um, well, what else did you see in Ariel that you connected to? Because if you completely cannot see yourself in this character anymore, what is that saying about, how you
Yeah.
view characters? So you really can't see yourself in anybody who isn't white? Like, is that kind of your base thought? You can't see the perspective or understand the personality or relate to the personality of someone who doesn't have the same skin tone as you? Because I've had to do that my whole life. But yes,
Yeah.
just the validation that comes with celebrating a character that looks like you, it is it's on a different level because it's something that is rarely seen. It's something that is rarely done. It's something that is rarely represented. So, um, yeah, I can find something I love in characters that don't look like me, but when they do, it just adds this really um, extra special layer of
Yeah.
representation and validation.
And as I've said, I find plenty of things to love and plenty of
Yeah.
myself in characters that look nothing like me either. And let's close it out. Let's summarize our let's talk interesting discussion for today by bringing back the question, why are people bothered by race
Well,
swapped casting? Racism is why they
yes,
are bothered by race
essentially.
swapped
Yes, but I
casting.
mean, even you can look at people of color who don't like race swapping either. Like, I
Absolutely.
wanna understand, and I think I do understand both perspectives of, why white people don't like it, but also why people of color don't like it. They feel like it's pandering. They feel like it's studio driven just for demographics. They feel like, we're just getting the scraps of white people. Why not create our own characters? But when you're looking at it from that aspect, you know, when there are characters that are originally and inherently black characters, they're not always being played by people who look like those
Yeah.
characters. I can think of so many cases of characters who were written as dark skinned black characters played by white people. I mean, or biracial people, light skinned, fair, European looking
Yeah.
versions of black people. Um, Look at Storm. Storm has never been played by an actress who looks like what Storm looks like in the comic book. She's always been played by a light skinned, fair, mixed race actress. Um, Look at the person that Angelina Jolie played in A Mighty Heart. That was a mixed race black woman, and she's being
Yeah.
played by the white actress. Um, Kevin Durant, this white man playing a Latino prison kind of vato character named Carlos in The Butterfly Effect. So there are, Ben Affleck, he directed Argo, so he's playing the lead character
Yeah.
who was a Mexican man. So you have these roles that were set out to be for people of color being played by people who aren't that race. And nobody really bats an eyelash. But when it's a character that is very popular or a character that is white originally in the media, it's a huge outrage situation. So yeah, we do have black characters. We do have characters for us and for POCs, but those roles are not always given to POCs.
Yeah.
So if they can show a different side of a character by making them a different race when their race has nothing to do with who that character is, because I agree with your stance on the matter hardly 100%, then why not give representation to a group that has been severely underrepresented in media for the whole of its inception?
Yeah. It comes down to just doing if you're gonna do it in a respectful way, and all these various opinions that you do have,
Yeah.
it's like you can hear all these opinions, And it's when those slightly different opinions are still coming from that respectful angle that
Yeah, that
it
you can
makes
have
it
a
an
discussion,
interesting
you know.
discussion. It makes it a reasonable discussion that you can have. But the people that are genuinely bothered, as we've said,
Yeah.
are the people that are just being, let's call it what it is, racist.
Yes, yes. Opinions can vary on this topic. You can have a nuanced opinion about why you don't agree with race swapping. I think that does exist. But when it's followed with this kind of inconsistent, very hyper specific rhetoric with nothing to really back it up, then I think you can deduce that it's probably from a more um exclusive, exclusionary, single-minded, close-minded way of thinking.
Yeah. Well, there we go, I think, for a nice fun discussion.
Fun, yeah.
Very
Racism,
easygoing
fun.
discussion. Very easygoing discussion to return back to Monday Madness with, but a great discussion to have.
Yeah.
And we're not going to end it there. We're not going to end it on too heavy of a thinky kind of
No.
statement or argument or anything like that, because we're going to get into fun and games, which was always a most exciting part of Monday Madness. Fun and games
Yeah.
is among us. It's not going to take too long, though. This
No.
new style of fun and games, we're just going to quickly test each other in a little bit of a testy, quizzy game of our own. And we have different formats for this as well. I mean, I don't know who wants to go first, Jeannine. Who wants
Um,
to go first? Do you want to ask first or answer first?
I'll answer first.
Oh, okay. So I have a game for you
Yes, okay,
that is
okay.
just a simple kind of question and answer game.
Okay.
I'm calling it Who Am I? Which is a really
Oh,
interesting
okay,
title,
okay.
obviously, for a game and has never been used before in any game show
No,
whatsoever.
no, not at all.
Basically, I have a list of old Hollywood actors and actresses who we love
Old
so much, don't we?
Hollywood, okay.
We love them on
Okay.
all things. It's a Wonderful Podcast. We love old Hollywood. I have a list of their real names. Now, we all know their stage names. Everybody
Yes.
knows their stage name. Very
Okay.
famous people. But I'm
Yeah.
giving you their real names, and you've got to tell me who they are,
Ooh,
with
okay.
what their stage known name is. Okay.
Okay,
There's going to be
alright.
some you should get,
Okay.
and some I don't think you will get, but I found quite interesting. Anyway,
Okay.
we're going to start with Norma Jean Baker.
Marilyn Monroe?
Yes, that is
Okay.
right. Well done. Yes, okay. We're going to follow that up with
Okay.
Lucille Lasseur. I don't even know if I'm pronouncing the last name properly. Lucille Lasseur.
Lucille Ball?
So you would think that. No, it's actually
Yeah.
Joan Crawford.
What? Interesting,
Which
okay, that's, like, completely different.
you question why she didn't just go with Lucille Lasseur.
Right? That sounds like a very, like, schnazzy name.
We're now moving on to Archibald Alexander Leach.
Of course, that is Cary Grant.
It is Cary Grant, yes. Who is Ruby Catherine Stevens?
Ruby Catherine Stevens.
Ruby Catherine Stevens.
I don't know if did you throw that middle name in there to throw me off?
I don't know, did I?
I mean, is it Catherine Hepburn, darling?
Unfortunately not. It's Barbara Stanwyck.
What? Oh my gosh, these
Barbara
names are, like,
Stanwyck.
not even, like, close.
Here is a name that I love a lot as well.
Okay.
Who is Margarita Carmen Cancino?
Oh, that would be Miss Rita Hayworth.
It is, yes. I love that name
Right?
so much.
Yes.
Why not just stick with Margarita Cancino, Rita? Is it because the producers were a bit too, it sounds a bit
Yeah,
too
it's very
exotic for
ethnic.
us,
Yeah,
Rita?
it's a little ethnic there.
Who, speaking of exotic sounding names. Who is Isur Danielovich?
Ooh.
Isur Danielovich.
Ooh.
I mean, if you don't know this will throw you off on who this is.
Danielovich.
Isur Danielovich.
Yeah.
Russian
No.
origin. Russian origin.
Yes, right? Yeah. I'm like,
It's Kirk Douglas.
yes, I think I remember recently hearing this, and when somebody was kind of doing I watched a video of someone doing, like, a deep dive on that family.
Yeah,
Yes. Yeah,
it's
good
Kirk
good change.
Douglas.
That's
And our last
okay.
one, Bernard, as I would pronounce it, or Bernard, as you would pronounce it, Schwartz. So
Ooh.
Bernard Schwartz. I never say Bernard. It's not the right phrase.
Um,
Bernard. But
I
he doesn't
know
look like a
Bernard.
Bernard.
No?
Bernard's an old man's name.
Yes, it is. I don't know.
At one
George
point, this man,
Sanders?
it is unfortunately not George Sanders. That
Uh,
is the real name of Tony Curtis.
what?
Yes. Yes. I love that.
Jamie
Yay.
Lee, your
There we
dad's real
go.
name is Bernard. Okay.
Bernard. Bernard Schwartz.
Good. Oh, really interesting. I'm surprised you didn't throw my favorite guy in there, Marion.
Marriott, yeah, I nearly did. But you'd have got that one, and I only wanted you to get some of them.
Okay, okay. You're trying to trip me up on purpose. Okay. Well, I have a little, we were talking about casting and
Yes.
so I have a little casting game for you. I have
Okay.
some movies and actors who were the original casting idea for some of these films. So
Okay.
some of them you're gonna have to guess the movie, and some of them you're gonna have to guess the actor who was originally going to be cast for some of these
Okay.
films.
Okay.
So, let's start. This singer from a well-known musical family missed out on playing Storm in 2000's X-Men.
Singer from a well-known musical family. Oh. I'm going with a potential of Janet Jackson.
Yes, she
Yeah,
was recently on the Drew Barrymore show where she revealed that they had approached her to play Storm.
that's a weird choice.
Yes, right? Um, Joaquin Phoenix was the original choice for this popular 90s slasher character.
90s. What? Billy from Ghostface? Billy Ghostface? Billy from
Y
Scream? Billy
Yes,
Loomis?
yes. He was he
Joaquin
they wanted
Phoenix?
him yeah, they wanted him to play Billy Loomis in Scream.
Mm. The
The
only
author
90s slasher character.
yeah, yeah. The author of this fantasy romance book series originally wanted this hunky British superhero actor to play the lead role in this film version. So what is the film franchise and who is the actor?
This is a what was it? A fantasy romance?
Yes.
Fantasy romance. I mean, this could be anything. Is it fantasy action romance? Is it like period romance? I don't know. I don't know what it is. They wanted what? They wanted a hunky
This
British person.
superhero actor.
So hunky. Oh,
This
Cavill.
was yes.
Oh, who was Cavill perhaps going to
This
play?
is who the author pictured when she was writing the book.
The oh, is it someone from Bridgerton?
No.
No, it's nobody from Bridgerton. I don't know. I don't know. I don't think I know any fantasy romance books.
Yes, you do.
I probably do. What's the book then? What's the book?
Twilight.
Twilight.
Stephanie Meyer wanted Henry Cavill as Edward Cullen in the Twilight franchise.
Okay.
He was
I
her
mean, you
original
forget
pick.
that Henry Cavill existed before the
Yes, before
2010s, don't you?
specific things. Yes. This actor who previously worked with Damien Chazelle and this
Oh.
actress who opted to go the Disney live action route were the original first choices for the leads of La La Land.
Oh. Ooh. Previously worked with so Miles Teller
Yes.
and Emma Stone also did go the Disney live action route. She did that Cruella de
Yeah,
Vil
she did.
movie.
She did. But this one went to
Um,
that in order to not do La La Land. She chose that over La La
oh,
Land.
at this point, what Emma Watson?
Yes.
Yes, I'm thinking release years then. That was good.
Yes.
That helped me.
I
Yeah.
shouldn't have given you that clue because I know you're so good with release years.
Miles Teller
Okay,
and Emma
2
Watson
more.
doesn't work as good as Gosling and
No,
Stone.
especially kind of knowing the singing she was doing in Beauty and the Beast.
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
Oh,
Okay.
with 2 more. Oh, okay, okay.
Yes. This beefy, subdued action star was on the short list of names to play this memorable Eddie Murphy role of Axel Foley.
Beefy.
Yeah.
The only thing I could focus on in that whole description was the word beefy. A beefy action star was going to play Axel Foley. Beefy action star of the early 80s, late 70s, perhaps early 80s. Oh God, it's not Arnold.
No, very close. It was
It's Stallone.
Stallone.
Oh
Yes,
God,
he was on the short list.
doesn't even
Well,
make any sense. There's
last
race
one.
swapped casting for you.
Right, yeah. And finally, speaking of Eddie Murphy, during a career slump for him, producers had their sights on casting him as the title character in this beloved early 90s haunting slasher.
Oh no, this doesn't work at all. They didn't try and put Eddie Murphy as Candyman, did they?
They did! Yeah,
No, that's a terrible idea. That's
right?
such a bad
Right? That
idea.
would have been so bad. But then they saw Tony Todd in the
Yeah.
Night of the Living Dead remake and said
Ah,
he's our
and they
guy.
realised that
Yeah.
Tony Todd's 6'5" and
Yes,
built very
standing
intimidating
over. Yes, yeah.
and has a
But
booming voice.
yes.
Murphy is the total opposite of that.
Yes, but during, I guess, the career slump he was suffering in the early 90s, they were interested in having him be the
Interesting,
Candyman.
very nice.
Yeah.
I like it. We're back with fun and games. What a
Yes.
great start it has been to season 2.
Yes.
Back at it for Monday Madness with Morgan and the Machine. As we said before, if you are watching this on the It's a Wonderful Podcast YouTube channel, subscribe, ding your notification bell up there. If you want to support us on Patreon or donate in any way, there is a link in the description of this episode to go and do that. There's also social media down there. It has been scrolling at the bottom of the screen as well, all episode long. But if you are listening on the It's a Wonderful Podcast feed, subscribe here wherever you are on all major podcast platforms to to hear all our other things like Morgan hasn't seen. And It's a Wonderful
Yeah.
Podcast, the main show. Answer those little questions we put on Spotify for all the shows we have as well. And yes, like I said, social media. You can find the show on Twitter at It's a Wonderful One, or we should say the artist formerly known as Twitter, which is what we like to say these days. At It's a Wonderful One. You can find me over there at the Purple Dawn with a 3 instead of the E and the because, Jeannine.
3 is the magic number.
On Instagram, TikTok, and Threads at the Purple Dawn. All your madness is where?
You can find me at Jeannine Devine _ on Twitter, Jeannine Devine on Instagram, TikTok, and Threads. If you want to get any merch for any of our shows, just check the description for the link or search It's a Wonderful Podcast on teespring.com. And if you want to purchase any of my art in print form, you can find that at my Big Cartel shop, g9design.bigcartel.com.
It's felt great to be back, Jeannine.
Yes.
There's only one thing left to do. Take it away.
3, 2, one.
Bye.
Bye.